Now I'm going to turn it over to Uri Zaki. Uri is the U.S. Director of B'Tselem, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the Occupied Territories. B'Tselem, I imagine most of you are familiar with, established in 1989 by a group of prominent academics, attorneys, journalists, and Knesset members to document and educate the Israeli public and policymakers about human rights violations in the occupied territory, to combat the phenomenon of denial prevalent among the Israeli public, and to help create a human rights culture in Israel. Uri served as an officer in the IDF. He then embarked on a career that has included work in party politics and with organizations promoting peace and challenging the Israeli occupation. He completed a law degree at Hebrew University and then went on to be a media and political advisor to then Justice Minister and perpetual peace camp leader Yossi Beilin. And he was an active participant in the Geneva Initiative and was the main spokesman of the initiative. Most recently, he was in party politics. He was elected as the chair of Young Meretz and was a candidate in the 2009 national elections on the Meretz list. So Uri, I'm going to ask you more or less the same question. From the perspective of B'Tselem, which has been monitoring Israeli behavior, attitudes on human rights for more than 20 years, is there a humanitarian crisis in Gaza? And I want to make clear, I don't think, Tanya doesn't resent me for asking the question. She knew I was going to pose the question. We're posing this question because this is what we're all being challenged with. So from your perspective, how would you answer when someone says there is no humanitarian crisis in Gaza? And second, in the wake of Operation Cast Lead and now the Israeli flotilla debacle, is B'Tselem seeing, or do you see a change in Israeli attitudes on the questions of human rights and humanitarian crisis, particularly in Gaza? And to what extent do Israelis, in your view, understand, or are now with the flotilla incident coming to understand, what the blockade actually means? I heard from someone, there was something on the radio they were interviewing, that Israelis until last week did not know that Israel was blockading chocolate and cardamom. So to what extent is that changing and our attitudes changing? So I gave you 3 questions. I'm sorry, that's unfair. But you have 15 minutes to say whatever you want.
Okay, thank you, Lara. And thank you all for being here. First of all, I would like to join Tanya's resentment for the question, and not for the moderator's question, but the question as a whole, the mere fact that we have, excuse me, to ask this question. I would go one step backwards and to ask ourselves, why is there a blockade, a siege, a closure? There's even a big debate on the mere definition of the legal definition, or the which words to use, but it doesn't matter because the reality on the ground. And I would like to acknowledge maybe Zena, who's here finishing now a 3 months program of the State Department from Gaza and going back to Gaza next week. So, tomorrow. And you could, after that, probably ask her about the reality there on the ground. Why is there a siege on Gaza? Why is there a blockade on Gaza? And the declared reason for this blockade is it began with the takeover of Hamas on the security apparatus in Gaza in 2007, and then excuse me, in 2006, and then when Gilad Shalit, the Israeli soldier, was captured by Hamas, the declared reason for there was a toughening of the blockade, and the declared reason was the fact that Gilad Shalit is being held captive. According to legal standards, that's an illegal collective punishment, and therefore that should be what should lead us, what should guide us when examining the situation, rather than whether it's a humanitarian crisis. Nevertheless, again, what is a humanitarian crisis? We can philosophically speak about what are the human rights that one needs in order to act normal, not be a life of crisis. But there are indicators, very clear indicators, and I will only name one, for an example, which is very telling, that right now 70% of the Gaza population is dependent on humanitarian aid coming from international organizations. So if 70% of the population is dependent on humanitarian aid, so this is definitely a strong signal of a humanitarian crisis. But if I may, I would like to, we are all human rights organizations, and therefore the international law, and we as Israelis, we hold Israel for the standards that the whole free world, I would say, hold itself of international law. But I want to also try and look at the situation from Israeli perspective. First of all, what is the real Israeli national interest? And I think that the Gaza blockade is a classic march of folly. This is a policy that not only does it not serve the declared reasons that it was established to begin with, but it also being counterproductive to those same reasons. And what do I mean? If you talk about toppling Hamas, we all know that now, almost 4 years after this blockade, more than 4 years, after this blockade first introduced, Hamas seems that it's there to stay. There's no indication that Hamas is being on the verge of being toppled. On the other hand, Hamas is getting stronger, both economically, due to the tunnels economy. And if we mention the tunnels in the context of whether there is or there's not a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the IDF, the Israeli military force, keeps showing the fact that there is that everything is there in the markets of Gaza, which is true, because everything is being smuggled through the tunnels, all commodities that are possible. But the prices of all these commodities is so high because, first, the unnatural, I would say, or problematic way they are being brought in, and the fact that Hamas, which is significant, is heavily taxing them, and also gives the monopoly of operating those tunnels to layers in the society, namely in the southern city of Rafah, that support its regime. So they actually create a population that is economically dependent on Hamas itself. Now, the other declared reason is the fact that Gilad Shalit is being still kept there. By the way, being kept there against in a matter that, according to international law, is considered a war crime, with no basic visits of the International Red Cross, but he's still there. I mean, there's no question that Hamas doesn't see the siege as a reason to free Gilad Shalit.